Hi there, I'm Victoria Schwab, also known as V.E. Schwab, and I'm here in Gandhi Bookstore, and I am selling Vicious in the United States it's called, and here it's called Una obsesión perversa, as well as The Near Witch, or La Bruja de Near. I so hope you check them out and enjoy. They are two very, very different books, but they fit this very amazing bookstore. I hope you enjoy. I would describe my style as a fascination with the lines between things. The line between good and evil, life and death, human and monster, hero and villain. I think a lot of people think that it takes one book to be successful, but for the vast majority of authors, we are made not by a single title, but by a body of work. The Near Witch, or La Bruja de Near, was first released in the United States 8 years ago. It's my debut novel. It found almost nobody and quickly went out of print, and now it's come back. And I think that that's proof. My first novel is now my 16th novel in English, and I just think that's proof that for the vast majority of us, it's not going to be one book. My success is not built by any one title. I think it's built by a readership that has grown a little bit with every single book. I mean, the goal of an author is to grow. This is the weird thing, is that books are static and unchanging, and authors are not. We continue to grow, and I think part of what helps is that I try to take on a different challenge in every single book. I never try to write the same story twice. I'm always looking for what can I do that I haven't done before. Growing up, I wanted the world to be stranger than it was, and so now I write it stranger than it is. I was that kid who was always looking for secret doorways, who was always looking for a code, a way to access magic. And so I write stories in which magic or supernatural powers or a library of the dead or witchcraft, in which it's all very close to reality. Perhaps you simply haven't found the way to access it yet. So Vicious is a very, very special book for me because I almost quit. I almost quit publishing, I almost quit writing, and I decided I was going to write one more book. But instead of writing for an audience of other people, I was going to write for an audience of one. I was going to write the book that was as strange and as weird and as dark as I wanted to read. And that book just happened to be Vicious. And I think I put a little bit of me into every single character in this book, a different facet of my personality, a different philosophy, but I wanted to write a book without heroes and see if I could still make you root for somebody. Yeah, I felt very free because there was nothing to lose. Because I was just going to write for myself. I never even thought this book would be published. It wasn't until after I finished writing it and it served what it needed to do to reinvigorate my love of writing that I showed it to my agent and we sold it to a publisher. And now I think it is the book that most of my readers connect with most. I almost quit because everything was going really badly. I wrote The Near Witch and I thought, this debut novel will change the world because that's what we're told about debut novels, and it didn't. And it went out of print 2 years later, and I wrote another book, and not many people read that one, and I wrote another book, and not many people read that one, and by the age of 25, because I started quite young, I was kind of beginning to lose hope that I would ever find my audience, and it wasn't until I wrote for myself with that kind of specificity that I discovered readers out there who are just as weird and strange and villainous as I am. So Vicious is told out of linear order, non-chronologically, and it was very, very hard to figure out how. It took almost a year of tinkering with the structure to figure out how to do it, but I really wanted it to read like a comic book without pictures. And so I needed that quick change structure to work.
Wow.
Yeah, Vicious is about Victor and Eli, two college students who start out as friends and become enemies. I am really fascinated with the nature of obsession. In fact, the Spanish title for Vicious, which is Una obsesión perversa, is a perfect title for this book because it is a book about obsession. It is a book about toxicity in friendships and toxicity in male friendships especially. Where is the line between wanting to be friends with somebody and wanting to replace them? And it deals with Victor and Eli, who are two very perfectionistic, driven young men who find themselves on a crash course towards enemies. And I was curious, how do your friends become your enemies and what do you do then? So this is the last stop here in Mexico City on my Latin American tour, and it has been an absolute dream. I didn't really know what to expect coming in. I thought that I was starting from scratch, that nobody would know who I was, that I would have no readership. I was just here to open the doors, and that would have been great. That would have been fine. And instead I have been met with so much warmth and so much love, such an incredibly supportive fandom. And to be honest, it's kind of just beginning here. I'm really excited to see it grow. I'm just very grateful I got to do it. This bookstore is amazing. I have found so many friends' books here. I've seen such a beautiful array. I get a little depressed every time I go to a bookstore in a foreign country because as a lover of words and as a reader, I want to buy everything. And the only thing stopping me is that I don't actually read Spanish. So in that way, I'm very grateful because there's less temptation. But what a beautiful, beautiful space. I think it's really incredible, the diversity of stories that I've seen here. I didn't know about all the ghost stories when I got here, and I write ghost stories. So one of my favorite things about writing stories about ghost stories is that every time I meet somebody, they tell me a ghost story. Everyone has their own ghost stories, their own local legends, and I think that's part of what's so exciting about a city and its history is the darkness and the mystery and the ghost stories that permeate its culture. I read a lot of books out of order because I get sent a lot of books before they come out. So I recently read and loved a book called If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which is like a love letter to the secret history set in a Shakespeare conservatory school. I read a book called Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir, which is essentially lesbian necromancers in space. It's kind of everything I've always wanted in a book. I have recently read a memoir called The Scarlet Letters, which is about a young woman's life as a dominatrix for a year. I love finding different kinds of stories. I'm currently reading an essay collection called Abandon Me by Melissa Febos. Let me think, what's next on my to-read pile? Oh, I'm listening to Middle Game by Shannon McGuire, and it is about the end of the world brought about by alchemy.
Wow.